What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes are back. This time we get to talk to a long-time MMA fighter, veteran of the UFC, now doing his own thing. We got Colorado Combat Club 10 coming up on December 18th, Theodorou versus Baker. Of course, he's not only the headliner, promoter, he's wearing a lot of hats. Too bad, too, because he's got to hide the golden locks of hair that he has. What's going on, Elias? How are you?
I'm good. Just another day in paradise here in Vegas. Been here since September and loving every second of it, and looking forward to keep a good thing going until about December 4th when I run off to Colorado to, settle in with all the elevation.
Promoter and fighter, and I believe you're also dabbling in some other stuff you were telling me. Like, you're keeping busy, right?
Yeah, busy's good. Got many different hats, as you mentioned, but unfortunately, hats don't fit my head. And I don't want to hide actually the hair, but I'm also here for the World Series of Poker. I've done some solid runs over the course of the tournament. I got a couple more next week and the week after. I didn't jump in the main event for the World Series of Poker because it's a 5-day component and I can't commit that much time. I obviously got a fight to win and some ass to kick.
How many events have you played, and what's the best you've done?
I placed 13th in what's it called? One of the events, more specifically the daily, the official World Series of Poker daily. And then I've been kind of just out of the money in a couple of other events. I partnered with GG Poker, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, online poker sites. I kind of partnered with them over COVID. I've only been playing poker in any capacity for about a year. And in that doing, I've made some final tables, and kind of my claim to fame is I'm a little bit of a psycho with it. So like with their app, I'll kind of like backing up. I don't drink and drive, obviously, but I'll drive my car to a bar and then, I'll have a couple of drinks, and no matter how far it is, I'll leave it there. And then the next day as kind of a punishment, I'll run to it. So I've basically run half marathons to my car while playing on their app and making final table. So I've competed and done pretty well over the course of the year with, again, only about a year of actual poker experience. One of the things that kind of was cool leading up to it is I kind of partnered with other Toronto native who's kind of one of the top in the world. And I've been teaching him how to work out, lose weight, and he's been teaching me how to not suck at the poker table. So it's been a wild ride.
Wow, that's good. And that's great that you definitely aren't getting behind the wheel after a few drinks. That's quite the punishment. But at least you're making something out of it, making some dough as well. But it's always good to pass that along. Yeah. Don't drink and drive, folks. It's always
for sure. Safety first.
A terrible decision.
Better to win some money on the poker table. It's better to win money on the poker table on the way over.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Now, another thing I meant about wearing many hats, like I know you're the promoter behind the scenes. I know you're fighting in on the fight card. Are you a matchmaker as well? Did you put together some of these fights, or did you give that to somebody else at least?
No, that's the Colorado Combat Club. Obviously, there's a little bit of removal in regards to my involvement. I'm in many ways helping provide the financial components. I'm bringing a lot of the sponsors on board for this event. And especially with my fight, I'm obviously staying hands distance away from it. Obviously, I can't be picking my own fights. But with that said, I'm really excited about my fight. Another, veteran in the sport, a former title contender in Bellator, and someone that's hungry and always shows up. And I'm looking to fight a game opponent and make history while doing it.
So, Elias, tell us about the groundbreaking stuff that you did in Colorado. You have an exemption for yourself for marijuana usage, right? Can you explain how all that came about?
Yeah, it kind of obviously took many years. It all started when I was with the UFC, obviously with them partnering with USADA, the United States Anti-Doping Agency. It was a big breakthrough for the sport. I'm a huge believer in clean sport. But unfortunately, my medicine, medical cannabis, is considered a prohibited substance, and especially was, during the time that I was with the UFC. You can look back at the, other examples of, past athletes like Nick Diaz, who, competed against someone with an actual an actual banned substance, but yet got more time than the other person with a banned substance for his cannabis use. And it was an outdated outdated mentality, outdated look at cannabis. And that was a stigma that I have been and still am very adamant and unapologetic in my fighting against that stigma. So I applied for a therapeutic use exemption with USADA, and it was a long process, and there are many obstacles, many hurdles I had to clear. Originally I had a medical card here in Canada, or back home in Canada, for my family doctor, and there was more that was needed. So I compiled much more medical records. I exhaust all other medical options. That's kind of the backwards approach that USADA had. I basically had to try every other prescription, opioid, and painkiller and antidepressant under the sun, just to try and come back to prove that cannabis worked better for me. And obviously, not only did the opioids, the SSRIs, the antidepressants, and the painkillers were less effective than cannabis, but they also had horrible side effects. And not only a patient, but an athlete competing at the highest level, it was very detrimental to my career. Again, to the point where it made me bloated. I was gaining weight, and anyone that knows anything about fighting, fighters have to constantly control their weight and cut weight. I'm about 210 pounds any given day, out of season. So, adding 5-10 pounds is a huge detriment, not only to the training session at hand, but also just my mentality and, my psyche kind of going through the process of a fight camp. I got to the point because USADA never says no, but they just deny you and tell you the reasons why. Originally, there were about 10 reasons why, and I got it down to about 2 or 3 before I ended up leaving and parting ways with the UFC. But I realized how, halfway through, especially with like the doctors and the researchers, I had researchers, for God's sakes, that were a part of this whole process with USADA. And they kind of, unfortunately, confided to me and said, USADA probably just doesn't want to do it. They don't want to make the history. They don't want to set the precedent. And in part, it's because they are funded by the U.S. government, and the U.S. government still looks at cannabis as a Schedule I drug, which means it has no medical properties under the U.S. government. And, USADA has changed its tune in some capacity, but even the way that the UFC has touted, what USADA has done in regards to removing it as a quote unquote prohibited substance, it's actually a red herring. You have to say that you like to get high. You can't, if you still say you use it for any anxiety, pain, or any medical reasons, USADA can still penalize an athlete, because then it's considered performance enhancing. So it's kind of backwards in the sense that, the stance with USADA and the UFC right now, you have to say you just smoke weed to get high. And that's, recreational has a big importance in cannabis, but for me specifically, it's medical cannabis. I'm using it for my condition of bilateral neuropathy, pain. It's basically nerve damage of my upper extremities. And as you can imagine, everything I do kind of, exacerbates that. So leaving the UFC and becoming a free agent, I ironically was able to be an agent of change for cannabis. And I took it back to Canada originally, and I applied for a therapeutic use exemption through the province of British Columbia, where I fought last March 16th and was able to take on another fellow UFC veteran in Matt Dwyer, who I TKO'd in the third. But in that fight as well, I was both fighter and promoter, and helped bring back combat sports back to Canada post-COVID with our protocols and our health and safety standards. So, this now kind of coming full circle, I was able to use the precedent that I had in British Columbia and take that to Colorado. And the way that the commissions kind of work, they all work in congruency with each other. Obviously, for instance, something like a suspension, for instance, can be, honored in a different commission. So too can a ruling in a positive sense. And that's what happened with my therapeutic use exemption in Colorado. And I think the kind of caveat to kind of express in regards to the difference between USADA and the Athletic Commission is that both British Columbia and Colorado, their athletic commission is actually run by the state and provincial government. So in doing so, this is the first time a state-sanctioned government through British Columbia and obviously now in the U.S. with Colorado has approved cannabis as a medicine in sports. So this is actually not only just me getting an approval for cannabis, but also more importantly, another foundation to medical cannabis rights in Canada previously, but now in the U.S.
So Elias, do you feel like maybe did you set forth like a blueprint for other people to kind of get through all this, or are they going to have to go through exactly what you went through, which seems like it took like a long time?
It definitely took a long time. It was about 5-6 years at this point. But my case sets precedent. And we're talking, you kind of mentioned it before previously, what is my role in the Colorado Combat Club as a promoter. Part of that is actually going to be to help any athlete that uses medical cannabis to see if through my counsel and through my, again, roadmap and blueprint, if you will, if we can get a therapeutic use exemption for them this event or next moving forward. And that's the really important thing to kind of stress is the fact that this is not only about me, this is about setting precedent for other athletes to use, the blueprint that I've set forward.
You give new definition to the term trailblazer in this regard. But I did want to ask, you said, USADA says you can, use cannabis if you just say, hey, look, I'm coming clean. I just like cannabis. If you ever had the opportunity to go back, would you do it or would you not do it based on the principles that you fought for, because I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm wondering if you would go back and just play by those rules.
Again, I'm still very much focused on the fight ahead. And there's still other jurisdictions, both in the U.S. and abroad, that I'm planning to continue to fight. Again, I'm very much focused on the task at hand, but never say never. Both with USADA and also the UFC, obviously they've made many inroads in regards to going in the right direction. But I'm whether it's I'm stubborn or I'm dedicated to fighting for what I believe in, and I believe that medical cannabis is here to stay, and I choose to fight to be on the cannabis side of history. And again, with that said, both USADA and obviously their parent company WADA are moving forward in the right direction, and who knows where they'll be next year or the year after, as they do have a planned meeting. All of WADA participants in different countries plan to come together. And again, I'm going to be talking after my fight to the CCES, the Canadian Ethics in Sports, and that's like the Canadian version of USADA. And I'm going to be talking to them and seeing different avenues in regards to how I can help them, because they've been pushing for basically the removal of cannabis in professional sports and amateur sports, more broadly speaking, in the Olympics since I think about 2015. And kind of the halfway point was them allowing CBD not too long ago. So again, everything's kind of going in the right direction. I think people are starting to realize more and more that cannabis is a plant, and more specifically a medical plant. And I'm very committed to doing my part to continue to fight the good fight, not only for myself but for all athletes.
That's a great answer. I think it's perfect for exactly what you've been through. You've been through a lot of roadblocks along the way, and you fought for them. And now look at all the doors that have been opened, and you're probably going to be the reason why doors continue to open. But at the same time, Elias, you're in your prime, and you had a good run in the UFC. I think you were 8-3 or something. You're one of the top middleweights in the world. So I'm glad at least you're keeping that door open.
Yep. Again, there's still plenty of fight in me, both in the cage and out. I got a tough opponent ahead of me, and I'm looking to make a statement. And once I finish them, that'll be 3 fights and 3 finishes since the UFC. And again, the reason why I haven't necessarily been as active as I wanted to be is because, again, the larger fight that I've been trying, and obviously COVID, because that's delayed everyone.
Right. Well, one other thing though, because I think there's a lot of moving parts involved. So USADA, you explained how they've come around and how they are going to be able to work with the athletes in the UFCs. What about the individual commissions? What can you tell me about their latest? Because usually they like to be on board, whether it's the rules and regulations, but when it comes to this is a whole other topic. What have you heard? Are they all going to trickle in as well, with their support of cannabis use, across not just the United States and all 50 commissions there, but the provinces of Canada?
Yeah, so I think certain places like, for instance, Ontario, where I'm from, it's kind of been grandfathered in. They never really tested unless, a third-party testing service like USADA comes in with the UFC. So like the example would be CFL football players aren't tested for cannabis and never have been. Whereas obviously the NFL, for instance, that has always been part of it, and only now more recently has been restricted only for preseason, the preseason games and stuff like that. So again, everything's kind of going in the right direction. Different commissions like Arizona and Florida have outright removed cannabis penalization. It kind of should be treated like any other type of substance in the capacity of, if you're impaired, you're impaired. They don't test you for alcohol. They just test to see if you're cognitively there. So that's something that, again, different commissions are kind of seeing and kind of going in the right direction. And I'm looking, to do my part to continue that fight and to continue that push on the cannabis side of history.
So you'll be fighting Brian Baker, who, at last I remember, because we covered him a lot, through WEC, Bellator. He lived in Colorado, and you mentioned you're moving there a couple of weeks early. You don't want to play around with the altitude. What's the preparation like for Brian Baker, I guess, like in regards to altitude and his skill set?
I think a lot of it's still, me doing me. As you mentioned, I had a very successful run in the UFC and overall in regards to my career. And part of that is, the cardio and, kind of the push that I kind of take to my opponents. But, obviously that kind of, no pun intended, elevation in regards to my determination to look for the finish. In the UFC, I did have some criticism in regards to, some of my finish performances. But now, out of the UFC, I've kind of reinvented myself, obviously, both inside the cage and out, and looking to continue that. I'm very much looking to the finish and looking to take it to him from pillar to post.
Last question, just because you seem to be well-versed on the topic of cannabis. Perusing your Instagram, I noticed that you are promoting vaping, right? Yep. Spooky vapes, they're called. But of course, in the news, we'll see. I mean, I know there's different types of vapes, that I don't know if it's because of the age, the kids, and obviously very, very frowned upon. Is that like just a different generation of vaping, a safer version of vaping? Is it the same vaping? I don't know much about it. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah, if you wait 1 second, I'll actually grab it for you. 1 second.
Sure.
1 second. So the best way to kind of explain it, this is much different than the vape that you see with like the cartridges and stuff like that. This
right.
is
CBD,
this
right?
This is it's all flower. So it's actually the healthiest way that you can actually vaporize with cannabis. This one's called the Mighty. As you can see, it's kind of mightily big. And the flower goes inside here, and it actually has no combustion. So, like when you're smoking a joint, obviously there's a paper, there's the butane from the combustion in regards to the lighter itself. And this is actually Health Canada, New Zealand, and I believe Australia, and even the UK as well approved. So this is actually like the healthiest way you can actually medicate with cannabis. And again, it removes all the the toxins and just allows the vapor of the actual flower. So in many ways, it's the healthiest way that you can medicate with cannabis. And I kind of do it obviously for my own well-being as a athlete, but also if I'm going to advocate cannabis, I want to do it in the healthiest way possible. So I partnered up with Stores and Mickle, the best in the business, and couldn't be more happier with, again, them and the other partners that I've been able to compile for this fight and the many fights ahead moving forward.
All right. Thank you very much for that explanation, and good luck with the camp you have left for Brian Baker. It's too bad you got to fight through Thanksgiving. You're going to have to fight off them urges, and enjoy the reaps and the benefits of a good post-fight meal. But I hope you get through this camp, healthy and safe weight cut and a great performance against Brian Baker, the Beast Brian Baker. Man, I definitely remember. I went to check this out. 2008, Goz and I went to see him fight Chael Sonnen here in Las Vegas. Great fight. So he's a veteran, man. He's an OG. Good to see him back in the game. That's gonna be a good one on December 18th.
Thank you so much. Great fighter, and it's one of those things where I'll make up Thanksgiving during Christmas.
There you go. All right, folks. Colorado Combat Club 10, December 18th in Greeley, Colorado. Look out for that. And Elias, thank you, man, for doing this interview. We appreciate it. Great catching up with you. We'll talk to you soon.
Ciao.